great, judges. Who's up here next?
Get away, get away.
Anybody. Just, rush right up.
Get away.
There we go. Hi there. What's this guy's name?
Known you.
Ben? Ben, are you a fan of The Next Generation? You like the new show?
The kids aren't as bad.
Yeah. Star Trek 6. That's your favorite movie of all the movies? You like the new one that came out? Did you see it more than one time, Ben?
Flirt with your wife, okay?
Oh, you saw it. You saw it. You like the Borg the best, huh? That's good. They're great, those Borg. They really are. I like your uniform, Ben. You look good. You're a commander there with your pins, and looks real good. Thank you for coming today, Ben, okay?
1, 2, 3.
We're going to get you out of here, Ben. Thanks, Ben. Tip for Ben, everybody. One of a kind. Thank you. Who have I got next here?
Put your bag on the
Hi. Nice to be back home again. Yeah. I don't remember much about Vancouver because we left here, or left Ioko when I was about 6. But I can tell you, when I was leaving, all I could think of was the train. Because I had never been close to a train before, except when you're in Ioko, you look across Burrard Inlet there, and Port Moody's on the left, and Vancouver's on the right, and all I could think of was as a kid just dreaming of, oh boy, that's when I'm going to be on one day, and that was really quite fantastic. And then we got over to we got over into Alberta. Oh yeah, right, okay. Anything else here from Alberta? Another one? From 3. Boy, you're outnumbering us. 4 or 5, okay. We got over into Alberta, and the train stopped, and my father asked the conductor, he said, what's going on here? He says, come here. And so my father came to us and said, come on, let's go out and walk along. It was pretty cold, because it was in February. And we walked along up to the engine, and we stood. We were going this way. We were on the left side of the engine. 3,000 head of buffalo were crossing the tracks. Really, what a sight. Fantastic. You'll read about it all in my books, including Ioko and Vancouver and everything else, which I love very much. We moved to Sarnia. My mother said we're going to be there in about 20 minutes. And I was not even 6 yet. And I looked out the window. I didn't see any mountains. And I saw nothing but flat land and just a few trees, no forest, no little copses here and there and everything else. And as a kid I said to myself, hey, I'm not going to like this, and I didn't. I really didn't. I was delighted to get away from Sarnia, Ontario. Well, Sarnia doesn't like to hear that, but that's just... Okay. Excuse me? Oh, she was born in Sarnia. Oh, his wife was born in Sarnia. Don't tell her. There were a few things about Sarnia, but not too many. Anyway, this is a sort of a question and answer period, and I find that most people do not know how to ask questions. Either that or they're too shy, and I just want to show you how easy it is by, how many were here yesterday? Oh, 1, 2. Oh, good. Then my jokes will be fresh. Anyway, the thing about it is that, all you have to do is ask a question, And I will ask a question that the people who check out the diagrams of the Enterprise, they look at them and look at them and look at them, and they get out their magnifying glasses, and they say, nope, there are no toilets. And the answer to that is you must understand, of course, that we do have phasers. Now, the next question that a lot of people ask is, what would I do if I were captain? The first thing I would do would be to limit Ensign Kirk. To one girl every 5 years. Right? That got pretty boring, you know. I mean, good gracious, what is it called? The romance of Captain Kirk, you know? That's what the show should have been called and everything else. Anyway, Chekhov would never be allowed to scream again. That also got boring, you know. And when we look at the script, you know, when we did Red Number 6, we were all there and we were reading it. And when we got through, everybody raised a cheer, you know, that there was no line that said, Chekhov screamed. Right? So that's good. Now, we would hire some really terrific writers to give Uhura some other lines other than hailing frequencies open. Yeah, because, you know, she's so cute, she's so pretty, and she looks terrific on the film and everything else. Besides that, she loves me.
Telephone operator.
Now, then Sulu would never be allowed to carry arms. No way. What you see is the final take, right? 25 takes before that, there's George with his sword or anything else, and boy, I'm telling you, when George has got a sword in his hand, we stand away, you know, like, wow, you don't know, and because he would say, what? You know, and off comes your head, you know, and if you ever went hunting with him, you know, George's shotgun would be right here on you all the time. We love George, and as a matter of fact, I got George into, when his agent died, I got him to come see my agent because I said, he's the best agent in the world. And George says to me, he says, boy, he says, you and he answered my prayers. Because George is doing much better since he got to my agent. And that's rather nice. You have to have an agent in Hollywood, you know. You don't have to in New York City, but you have to have it in Hollywood. Okay. The next question would be, Bones would never be allowed to say he's dead yet. Because he doesn't know what he's talking about, you know. I mean, you know, he goes like this, and before you know it, you're alive. You know, hey, come on. And
Get a light.
finally, though, Mr. Spock would never, ever be allowed in my engine room. You know, it used to be that when this Scotsman here built the ship, knows how all the computers are going to work, and, you know, just knows about everything, but when we get into trouble, they'd send Mr. Spock down to the engine room. Right? And there would be Scotty off in the corner saying, oh, gee, Mr. Spock, you're so marvelous. You know, and all I have to do is watch you, and one of these days I'll be called a miracle worker. Okay? The next question. Yes? How was that? The next question is, how did I get the role of Scott? Well, to cut a long story short, about 2 weeks before they were going to do the second pilot of Star Trek, my agent sent me to read for the role of a Scotland Yard inspector on a show called Burke's Law.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
A lot of people have seen Burke's Law, right? And I did about 3 different British accents for them, and they said afterwards, they said, well, you know, we can't give it to you because you look a little too much like Gene Barry, and it would look like nepotism and everything else. And I said, well, I think I'm much better looking than he is, you know, and everything else, and laughed. And but anyway, 10 days later, the director of that, Jimmy Goldstone, whom I'd never met before, called me up and said, Jimmy, I'd like you to come and do some of your accents for these Star Trek people. I said, what's that? And so he told me. And so anyway, I went there and I did 7 or 8 different accents for them. And at the end, Gene Roddenberry said to me, rest his soul, he said, which accent do you like? I said, well, if he's going to be an engineer, then he better be a Scotsman. Because in my history, you know, Scotsmen are the famous engineers. You know, I read about Scotsmen doing this and Scotsmen doing that, you know. And they invented the steam engine and the telephone and, you know, radar and, hey, listen, you know, all sorts of things. So anyway, Gene said, well, he says, I rather like that one too. And I jumped right in and said, good, we'll call him Montgomery Scott. And everything else. And then I just started going on about the character. And you know, Gene said, you know, and he tried, you know, Gene doesn't like to have the wind taken out of his sails, you know, so I had to shut up. And anyway, but I'm still the only person who named his own character. And I named him Montgomery Scott after my maternal grandfather, who actually was a sailing man. And when he was a sailing man, and he was a sailing man before steam came along, he actually entered Vancouver Harbor. Vancouver Harbor and Victoria, and the coast of China also. And his name was Captain James Montgomery. And he had about 4 or 5 of his own ships. And I'm named after him. My name is James Montgomery Doohan. And so, but I never thought of naming my character after myself. All I could think of was him. All right. So anyway, but supposing they had picked some different accent, and when Captain Kirk calls down to engineering and says, "Give me Warp 12," instead of hearing the familiar "Warp 12, Captain, my engines just can't take that." Instead of that, you hear "C." Or you hear, "Oi, Dave, what is this Warp 12? I can get you 3 4s, or 4 3s. I can get 11 for you wholesale." They don't like that, oh, you people. Or we have, "Now listen here, Captain, I've told you many times before, I don't like to go above that wall paint." "Oh, that's an order." "Well, all right." Or we have, "Whatever you say, sweetie." Or we have, "Captain, you are playing with me, huh?" And also I noticed that on the last planet you did not get the girl. You should have come to Lucky Pierre. Or we have, well, how was that, Captain? I just you just woke me up. What 12? Warp 12. Well, never heard of it. Oh, no, wait a minute. No, it was, you know, I remember now. I think it was a Scotsman that told me. Yeah, he told me to get your dilithium crystals and cuddle them a little bit and stroke them a little bit, and who knows, they may get the power and stand up and give you a Warp 12. But I tell you what, I'll work on that after I finish my nap. Okay? Oh, we have, "Captain, are you calling me on the side of your phone?" Are you sure you're not calling me on the cellular phone? Sounded like a cellular phone. No. No. Confucius saying, Ward 12 is not good. Ward 13 is even worse. All right. Then no, here's another one. Ha ha! You be young Kirk, eh? Well, sir, I'll see you hanging from the highest yard arm of Starfleet before I'll give you a Ward 12. My favorite. You're going to ask a lot of questions. I know that, okay? My favorite, though, is Reggie, and he would answer the captain something like this. I'm terribly sorry, sir, but I can't seem to get the little buggers to move any faster. All right, now I think you all passed, so you don't have to leave. So I think what's your question, sir? How about a wee bit of an Irishman? Well, it's all right with me, whatever you want. or under that, we could do the Northern Irish, and they talk like that, you see. Yeah, there was a great friend of mine, was Hagen Beggs, the actor Hagen Beggs? He lives in Vancouver. I called him up, and his telephone's disconnected. I don't know any idea where he is now. Anyway, that's too bad. Because I wanted to have dinner with him last night. But he's not here. I don't know where he is. He didn't write and give me his new telephone number. So anyway, God, I hope he's still alive. Marvelous character, Hagen. It was fantastic. There was I'll just tell you about Hagen Beggs. The one thing that really made me love the man is that he was in Hollywood there for a while, and he was doing some shows, and he and his wife Anna had this girl in. They were babysitting this girl. She was about 9 years old, and Hagen had a young boy who was maybe 2 or 3 or something like that, and this little girl, we'll call her Mary, I forget her name. She was, going around saying, oh boy, nothing to do, what am I going to do, She was bored, right? And Hagen said to her, he says, go in and ask Anna for an apple, would you? Oh, okay. She went in and asked Anna for an apple. And she kind of come out with the apple, and she said, and handed it to Hagen. You know what? He said, he took the apple and just split it. And he said, no, I'm not going to look at this. He says, and I'm going to close my eyes. And he says, I want you to look at this. See those little pips in there? Those little seeds? Nobody in the world has seen those before you. And he says, do you realize that there's an awful lot of exciting things in this world if you just look for them? Okay? Isn't that terrific? So, yes, sir. 2 questions. My father was quite an inventor, yes. Well, as a matter of fact, my father went to the University of Belfast, and first of all, in daytime, he took pharmacy and became a pharmacist. At nighttime, he took veterinarian and also dentistry at night, and which was a very valuable thing for him in Ireland at that time, in Bangor. He had his own little chemist shop over there, and so he would travel the countryside fixing horses and dogs and cattle and whatever and everything else, and he'd come back and in the dental shop behind his pharmacy, he would do things, and my father even worked with leeches. If somebody was bleeding, and he'd put a leech in there, right? and then just take the leech out and stick it in salt water, and that would disgorge the blood and put it back in again. You know, that'd stop it. Leeches are coming back, though. I can tell you, I just heard about it a couple of weeks ago. And anyway, he would also then make out pharmaceutical, what do they call them? What do you go to a doctor for? You give you a prescription, right? Yeah. Anyway, you know what? It's when you forget things, like when you get older, people say, oh, well, you get forgetful. You know why you get forgetful? Because you already have so many things in your head. You can't swap them, you know? At least that's my excuse. Anyway, no, I haven't finished yet. But
He said just call.
when they decided, because they were Catholic, they decided to leave Ireland because of the same old stuff that's still going on over there now. And nobody loves anybody over there, and except themselves. And it's as much one side's fault as the other. But mostly it's the fault of the British government. However, I'm not going to preach anymore about that. They decided in late 1919 to come to Vancouver instead of going to South Africa, because my mother had a sister here who had already been in Vancouver for about, with her husband and children, for about 8 years. And they arrived in Halifax Harbor on New Year's Day of 1920. I was born on March the 3rd. Excuse me, they landed in Halifax Harbor and took the train across to Vancouver, 5,400 miles, right? And I was born on March 3rd of 1920, which this coming March 3rd will make me 72 years old. And I'm really 92, but anyway. But the point is that because I was in the womb coming across, that means I'm a good sailor, and I love trains. Okay? And I do love trains, and I love boats and everything else. My father, there was a depression on at the time because of shortly after the war, and the only job that my father could get with all his talents was driving a team of, he was also a very good horseman, driving a team of horses for the city of Vancouver, and he did that for about 6 months, and his helper was a PhD, which there were very few of in those days. And the PhD was about this high, you know, and couldn't lift a thing or anything else. And my father had to do it all, but the other fellow was so interesting, and they would talk about all sorts of things. Then my father quit that with the city of Vancouver, either that or he couldn't take it anymore or something. And he would travel around the lumber camps and fishing villages and mines and so on. And he was kind of like a traveling mendicant, you know, with going around and fixing this and fixing that, and you know, and whatever. And then the Imperial Oil Company wanted him to take over the job as their pharmacist in the company town called Ioko, and which he did. And we lived in the company town house. And my father spent all his spare time up at the lab at the refinery. And they found out that very quickly that he knew more about chemistry than anybody else that was up there at the time. And then he started, they hired him instead and got another pharmacist and hired him as a chemist. So, 1923, he was the first man to invent high-octane gasoline, which he then invented 3 processes, and of course that was putting lead into them, you know, and now they want to get the lead out, you know. So anyway, but they took them, Sarnia, it took them quite a while to recognize that. But in 1926, they moved my father to the main laboratories in Sarnia, and that's where he spent the rest of his life, even though he didn't know how to handle it too well, and he drank a little too much, and was retired 5 years early, and everything else. He was a genius, but he just couldn't handle his own life, which is too bad, you know. Anyway, so that man had a question, and then you.
I understand that you served in the Navy.
I didn't serve in the Navy. However, I was with the Royal Navy for 6 weeks during the war, when I had to, I was in charge of, I was an artillery officer in the Royal Canadian Artillery at that time, and I served with the Navy for 6 weeks, and we were doing experiments at Bournemouth and Poole on the south coast of England, and what I was doing at that time was arranging to write an Army manual on how to use artillery or self-propelled artillery on invasion practices. You know, going in, and as you come in closer, you lower your guns down and so on until you get down to a certain safety factor, because otherwise, you know, you'll hit the guy in front. Okay, so we had to do a lot of that with the Navy and do the timing and everything else. And I lived aboard an LCT, of which there were 6 at that time in Southampton Harbor. And one of the commanders of the LCT, oh, by the way, the ship I was on was number 1701. All right, yeah. And the commander of one of the vessels there was called 2 Order Taylor. It was either full speed ahead or full speed astern. You know, he was quite a character. Anyway, that is the only time I have really been with the Navy, sir.
What year was it?
Whoa, wait a minute, that had to be late 1941 or early 1942, because I became an officer in early 41. All right? So where were you?
I wasn't even born.
Oh, you weren't even born.
No.
Where did you read that I was with the Navy? She told you.
me.
Oh, okay, well, now she knows it better, right? Okay. Yes, sir. Have I ever seen a UFO? No, I haven't, and I personally don't believe in them. I do not believe in them, no. To me, there's some kind of phenomenon, and that's about it, you know. There's no way that I'm going to believe that there are people out there watching us. No way. Yes, dear, you, with the puppy.
I wanted to know if some of the lines that you used in Star Trek were yours, or if you went directly from the script, because a lot of it was very humorous. The second part of this is the humor in Star Trek was one of my favorite parts of it. I really.
They usually gave the humor to me, you know.
Did you throw in a few extra?
Oh, sometimes, yeah, but like at the end with the trouble with tribbles and everything else, and I threw in the line that there'll be no tribble at all. And when in the show called By Any Other Name, where I was supposed to have drunk the guy under the table, you know, and he looked at something that I was holding, and he says, "What's that?" And I looked at it, and it was the color green. I say, "That's green." You know, but you know, our writers were pretty good, and they had a. Well, there was not much comedy in that for me. In The Wolf and the Fold. Oh, I'm glad it was. I'm glad it was. Thank you. Yes, sir. My thoughts on the future of Star Trek. Well, with Gene Roddenberry passed away, Paramount has made very fast and quick changes, and to me, I think are to the detriment of Star Trek. I think they really should have someone who is in charge of Star Trek to make sure that Star Trek keeps along its proper lines. Because, hey, the lines that Gene Roddenberry put down are the ones that made it famous, you know?
Yeah.
But you know, every production company thinks they know better than anybody else, you know, and they'll probably ruin it. And if they do, I would like you to write a letter into them and say, hey, you boobed it, you know, that's it. No, as a matter of fact, I'm delighted to be in the old one and everything else, and if people ask me, do you think I'll be in the new one? And I always say to them, no, I don't want to look that old. Excuse me? Yes, and that's why I don't want to be in the one that Forrest Kelly is, because there wasn't one square centimeter that didn't have 5 wrinkles in it, you know? And, you know, that takes me about 3.5 hours sitting in a chair. Hey, boring. Yes, sir. My feelings on the movie was that this is the best one we've ever done, and there's no reason at all why it should be the last one. However, you never can tell with Paramount, and you know, it's unbelievable. Although I understand that Leonard Nimoy was talking the other day to somebody, and they said something about, you know, is this going to be the last one? And Leonard just said, well, you know, I never can tell. He didn't say yes or no, which is that's always a good sign, because the beautiful thing about Leonard, not only is he our best director that we've ever had, but he's got a real good head on his shoulders, right? You know, like, and he goes straight down the line, you know. Yes, sir. Excuse me?
2 questions. First is, explain the warp factor and what are two of the other
I'll take the first one. The warp factor is, warp 1 is the speed of light, right? Warp 2 is the cube of 2 times the speed of light. So what's warp 8? 512 times the speed of light. Okay? I've worked that out before, you know. What's the second question?
Were there any other Canadians besides Bill Shatner?
Were there any other Canadians in number 6? Yes, there was Kim Cattrall, and there was Christopher Plummer. I don't know. Hagen Banks was in one. I don't know of any other Canadians though. Right? Yes, dear. And then you. If I were the captain, how would I treat the people on sick bay? Oh, I'd give them a few slaps and say, come on, get up out of bed here, you know. Can I imitate Spock? Well, I tell you, you're going to have to, no, I can't do it without the ears, dear. But you're going to have to get the books that or the audio tapes that I do, where I do Spock, and I just don't imitate him for everybody. And now you have another one. Oh, I don't know what the question is here, I'm sorry. Star Trek the Motion Picture is going to be on TV again? Sunday. Oh, good. Okay, that's great. Fine. Yes, sir.
Doing this comment in TV Guide about another series based on a space.
Can you still take
I don't I read what you read. Paramount doesn't call me up and tell me what's going on all the time, you know. I understand it's something like Deep Space Nine, Space Base, or something like that. You know, I have no idea what it's going to be. Okay, excuse me. I can't hear you. You're going to have to come up. Oh, come here.
What would you think if they had a 10 forward on the original Enterprise? Would you think would have been a good idea?
Why not?
Yeah. I didn't even know what 10 forward was until, oh, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I'll take a scotch. Anytime you want to go there and get it for me. Okay? All right. Yes, sir.
You a fan of The Next Generation? You a fan of The Next Generation? Do you watch it religiously like all the rest of us?
No, as a matter of fact, I don't watch it religiously because I'm usually not home to watch it. I travel about 35, 40 weekends a year, and that's very good for my wife because when I'm home, I'm really home, and she sends me out to shop for this and shop for that and everything else, just so she gets some time to herself. The poor girl, But she's a very sharp girl with a great sense of humor. And not only that, about nearly 2 years ago now, she became a helicopter pilot. And we are moving up to the Washington State, and she's been up here with the boys, one of whom is with me this weekend. My 6'3", 15-year-old. Anyway, she had to buy a house there. We're going to build on the property that we have, but she had to buy a house there so that we'd have some nice, comfortable living while we were there and everything else, instead of paying house rent, which is 3 times more expensive than it is to rent a house. To buy a house, a small one. And well, anyway, she gets up here and she says, "Oh, there's so many seaplanes up here, between Vancouver and Seattle. There's nothing but seaplanes, and of course up in the north and everything else." And I've done an awful lot of flying with bush pilots and in northern Ontario, and. So I said, "Yes, dear." I said, "You're just a helicopter pilot. I said, "You're going to have to take fixed wing and get proficient at that, and then you're going to have to take seaplane. And I'm going to take seaplane also." Okay? Yes. My favorite person in Star Trek is Mr. Spock. Okay? You have any questions over here?
I wish I had
yes, sir.
big ears like that.
Huh?
I wish I had big ears.
What about it? Well, I can't hear you. Come on up here. Come on. I heard NCC 1701A and come on, get up.
Don't
We're on NCC 1701, NCC 1701A, and both of those blew up, so. I just wondered if you were on B or C after that.
As a matter of fact, I don't think an A blew up.
Well, I'm just.
As a matter of fact, the last time I was on A, there was nothing ever went wrong with it.
We used to show you the movies. Yeah, it was lots of Star Trek movies.
Yes, dear.
Each new Star Trek except the movies.
A collection of souvenirs, yeah, mostly things that have been given to me by fans. I don't go and collect them myself, when we finished the original series, the wardrobe man left me a note on my front door with something there, and he says, "A daring raid was made on Paramount's wardrobe, right? And there, hanging on the doorstep, on the doorknob, was my kilt, my sporn, beautiful sporn made of seal skin and sterling silver, and the chain and everything else. And hey, listen, it looks terrific, And They get polished every now and then, you know. Yes, sir. Where did I get the idea for what? I can't hear you, so that's why I'm asking somebody who heard, what is it? For the Excelsior. Oh, you mean the pregnant guppy? Yeah. That came from Harv Bennett. And, you know, yes, dear. I appeared on a Bonanza series with Majel Barrett, not Majel. Majel Barrett, yes, but we didn't know that we didn't know each other then. No, I didn't meet Majel until Star Trek. Okay? All right. Yes, sir. I don't think he will. No. Matter of fact, Harv is not very happy with me because the point is that, hey, I was told that he was fired, you know, and he comes up to me at the opening and says I wasn't fired, Jimmy, and everything else. However, to me, the bad editing, and you can pass this on to Harv if anybody wants to, the bad editing in Star Trek II, which was corrected later on when ABC did their version, and Nicholas Meyer, our director of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, was the one who edited it for ABC, and he asked to do it because he was also unhappy with the edit. And to me, I can remember Harv asking me a question once when he called my house, and he said, it was something about whether to play the bagpipes or not, you know, and all that sort of stuff. And I said, well, are you the boss? He says, yeah. I said, then do what you want to do, you know? And you know what? I just suddenly, about a week ago, thought, hey, that's what was wrong with Star Trek II, is that he was the boss and didn't do the job. There. Pass it on to Harv if you want to. I don't want to even talk to him, you know. Yes, ma'am. Well, yeah, a story about losing my luggage after Star Trek II, or Star Cruise 2, or something. Oh, yeah. Well, okay, we were coming. There was a 5-day cruise. The last cruise that we were on was a 5-day cruise, of which we, on the ship, well, the Star Trek people on the ship, were only allowed 2 days because we had to go back and work on Star Trek 6. And I'm telling you, there was no way we spent 2 days enjoying ourselves. It was constant picture taking. I mean, there were 1,100 people on the ship, fans on the ship, and we had to pose with every darn one of them, right? And not only once, but twice, or 3 times, or 4 times, and the rest of the time was spent interviews and everything else. I'm telling you, I was so bored with that trip, you know. And then they dropped us off at an island off Mexico, and up to Cancun or Cozumel or someplace. And we drove to, don't put your hand up, you're going to get tired. It's a long story, because she asked for it. Anyway, we drove to this Cancun, I guess, and we were going to catch an Aeromexico flight to Mexico City, and then we're going to catch a Delta flight from then to Hollywood, or to Los Angeles. And the Aeromexico guy looked at our tickets and everything else, and he just thought we were going to go all the way through to Los Angeles on Aeromexico, right? And so we were there quite a bit early, and for some reason or some reason we had to check on something. Then we found out that our luggage was marked right through to Los Angeles, which meant that we would probably lose it, because it would be on an Air Mexico flight, and we thought it would be going via Delta from Mexico City and everything else. Well, I'm telling you, it was just ridiculous. We found out, and we raised a stink, and George and I had to go out to this airplane and look in the baggage bay, and they had baggage right from the ceiling right down to the floor, and it was unbelievable. They had to take about 16 rows of baggage out to get to mine. George's was about number 5 row, and mine was about 16, and everything else. And it was not only that, it was down to the bottom, squash, you know. So then we got a porter there, and the porter took the luggage. You know, when we got to Mexico City, he took our luggage, and he raced down the. I'm not going to run after a guy, you know, because what the heck? If he's going to race there, he gets no tip, you know. But anyway, George took off after him. I said, "I'll see you later, George." And Michelle and Walter were there, and it's a boring story, isn't it? Anyway, I walked right past the Delta Airlines thing, and then I walked out. I saw an Air Canada window over there, you know, and I said, "Where's Delta?" You know, and they said, "Oh, back there, that way," and then, you know. So, you know, I walked back again, you know, and everything else. But I do a lot of traveling, and I don't really find too many mistakes by the airline at all. Pardon, dear?
A lot of walking and traveling. Walking and traveling.
What about it?
Oh, your life. Walking and traveling.
That's what I do. I walk and I travel. I travel and I walk. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What was your favorite Star Trek movie?
What's my favorite Star Trek movie? Number 6, then number 2, and then number 4. All right? And my favorite episode, because it was written in more scientific terms, even though my part wasn't as big as in some of the others, it was the Doomsday Machine. All right? I like that one. Okay? Yes. I have to hear you. You're going to have to come on up. Oh, come on up. Come on. Come on. I mean, I can remember I could be heard, you know, 50 yards away in a forest when I was a kid. Hi.
Engineering, the only place you work.
Is the engine, I'm an engineer, that's true. And that's the only place I work. Okay? Yeah, where did you want me to work? I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, sometimes I played the captain, right? When the captain was gone from the ship. I was then captain in charge. Or acting captain, right? I was acting captain. Yes, dear. Did I take any training as an actor? Well, okay, I might as well give you the whole rundown here, because some people may find it interesting and some won't. 1945, I was discharged. I ended up as a captain in the Royal Canadian Artillery, and I was discharged on October the 10th, 1945, and I went home for about a week. Then I went up to northern Ontario to go fishing for about 5 days. And when I came back, I didn't know what I was going to do. You know, I had no idea. And my brother, one of my older brothers, who was also in the artillery, who is now a retired Canadian general, he suggested to me that I go to the Veterans Administration School to bone up on academic subjects that I hadn't had for 6 years or so, you know, actually nearly 6.5 years. Because the Veterans Administration owed me, because of my long service and also my overseas service was 5.5 years, you know, without coming home. And so I started going to this school and was studying and everything else and boning up on things and everything else. You know, I was very, very good in science and mathematics, and just about always did about 100% in anything, physics and chemistry and mathematics. And I was going to enter the Western University in London, Ontario, and didn't know what I was going to be, you know, because, hey, you know, it takes quite a while to figure out, because it was a shock being away for 6.5 years. Anyway, I was studying one night, and I just decided to take a little break, and I turned the radio on, and there was no television in those days. I turned the radio on, and I heard a radio show. Probably the worst radio show I had ever heard, you know. And I got my Irish dander up, you know, and I said, well, I got to do something about that, you know. I got to go down and just see. So got some stuff, went down and read that stuff to a recording, a transcription. And the operator and I did the playback. And that's the first time I'd ever heard my own voice, you know, and I said, oh, that is awful. He said, well, I don't think so. Well, cheered on by that, I said, hey, where do you go to learn? Luck, happenstance, whatever you want to call it, you know, fate. That morning, a brochure arrived of a drama school that was opening in Toronto the following week. I sent them a telegram, got an answer back. I was there on a Monday, and 6 months later I had won the top scholarship, which was 2 years free tuition at the neighborhood playhouse in New York City, which at that time was the best school in the country, and I can guarantee that because, you know, I know I'm a good actor, because I know there isn't a part I can't do. Okay? And then, when I finished my 2 years as a student, they asked me to stay on and teach, which I did for nearly 3 years. But by that time also live television had come along, and I was in live television the very first week in New York. All right? Then, 6 years later or something like that, I go home for Christmas to London, Ontario, when my mother was in hospital there. And on the way back, I stopped off the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, where they had just started television 3 weeks before that. That was in late '52, and I was going back in January, around the 1st or 2nd of January. And I walked into their offices, spent 2 hours there, and here I was, a guy who had done 50 live television shows in New York. I was a veteran, right? And I walked in there and I walked out 2 hours later with 6 months' work. All contracts for this, that, and the other thing, and you know, and it was like, I went down to New York, packed up, back to Toronto. I was in Toronto 2 weeks before I had a year and a half work, all lined up. And so that's the way I got going, okay? Yes? Do I watch myself on TV? No, only if I've never seen it before. Okay? If I haven't seen it before, then I watch it. When I have to watch it, do I like watching it? Yeah, I like watching it, but that's only because the director allowed the print to go, you see? In other words, first of all, the director has to like it, because I don't go and watch dailies the next day, you know? If the director likes what I do, you're next here. If the director likes what I do, then I'm quite satisfied with that, okay? And if I'm not happy with it, I ask, I want to do it again.
Carter, just wondering, does your family follow your role?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yes, as a matter of fact, one of my boys right now has done about 3 plays. He's also done a 13-minute videotape where he played every role, and it's really quite terrific, you know. And he's here, yeah. He just disappeared.
No, I mean,
back there, he was standing right next to that pillar. So he decided, oh, I'm going to get out of here. Anyway, but he's a beautiful boy, and he does very good acting. He needs a lot of experience, and he needs good training and everything else, but who knows, you know, he probably won't want to even ask. No, my older boys, twin boys, they're 32 years old now. They were both in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and as extras. All right. Yes, dear. 25 years. Yes, dear. Well, I mean, Liz, this little girl, is objecting to the fact that we were supposed to be on a 5-year mission, and here we are 25 years later, right? You know, that's because of reruns, dear. And we didn't even get the 5-year mission going out. They only gave us a 3-year mission, right?
5 years here would be 1 year there.
Yeah. Is she always as good as this? Okay. Oh, last question. Okay. I have to. You've asked the question, so I have to go. Then I'm going to give you a Scottish toast. Right here. Last question. Yes, ma'am. In green.
What's your most memorable moment filming such classic Star Trek?
Oh dear. Just too many. I can't really.
What's your funny one?
Well, I don't know about it's funny or not, but one young lady tried to, wasn't during the filming, she wanted to find out what a Scotsman wore under his kilt. And she found out that nothing was worn, it was all in perfect working order. I always wait for somebody to ask that question because it looks like a plant. You know? Yeah. We don't know each other, do we? No, thank you for lying, dear. All right, I'm going to give you a Scottish toast, and I'm going to give it to you twice, and then I'll translate it. Here's Taeus and was like a sky few, and there are deed. Here's Taeus and was like a sky few, and there are deed. Nobody could possibly be as good as we are. To be that good, they'd have to be dead. Alan Ferguson. Oh, this guy! So this guy gets this Terminator mug for Alan. It's a natural for you. You'll love it, Alan. There you go. That's from that's from our friends at the Starland back there. And Wesley Orlston, Harrier Drive. Is that Wesley? Wesley, also from the Starland. It's nice Star Trek 6 shirt. Come on up here, Wesley. Yeah, how about Shirley Meeker? Shirley Meeker, are you here?
He's got one.
He's wearing the same.
Back here. Here's a video for you. Hang on our shirt. Is this Shirley? Shirley, can I interest you in a Star Trek 6 shirt from Mr. Doohan? There's for Shirley. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
And let's see here. Kevin Frystad of Langley. Kevin Frystad. Here comes Kevin. Kevin, I got a video cassette for you, Kevin. Sue Hutchins. Here's Sue cleans up again, I'm telling you. For Sue, I have an epilogue and an idic necklace there for Sue. That's from the Star Post over here by the doorway entrance. Doug Johns of Burnaby. Doug Johns. There's Doug from the Fantasy Books people also over there by the snack bar. There's one of those Enterprise pins that blink for you. Nice collector's item there for you. Amy Whitman. Amy Whitman. Is our last winner, Jim, for Amy. We have another one of our video cassettes. We're going to start playing that again for you in the back. Thank you all for coming today and for joining us here at Trek Fest. Let's hear it for our winners, too. Oh, my goodness. An awful lot of perks to this business, you know. that. If you have a pink ticket, folks, please form a line starting right here along the wall. Join us in 20 minutes with white tickets, 40 minutes with blue tickets. Thank you.
Holy crap.
I want one. No, they're about $100. They're too expensive. Communicators. You know communicators?
Oh, you
They're
talk
real
on them.
ones.
You talk on them.
Those are the
These are the real ones. They're all they're actually
These ones, they just disappear.
That one there goes. Did you hear that one there? One for $250. Makes a little sound.
Yes, I will make one for him too.